So hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. We'll focus to give you an overview of programs in graduate studies at Polytechnique Montréal. Thanks for joining us here in Quebec for lunchtime, but maybe in Iran later on the day. So before starting, I would like to make a quick introduction regarding the COVID-19 situation, which is an exceptional situation. For weeks now, it affects the whole world in an unprecedented scale. It has changed our lives and the way our governments and organizations work. As you may be aware, this crisis could affect your study project and your arrival to Polytechnique Montréal. However, be assured that the school works hard to review its processes and to put in place measures to minimize the impact of this pandemic on the new coming students admitted for fall 2020. Despite our efforts, a lot of uncertainty hangs over the course of our academic and administrative activities, and many questions remain without answers. We closely monitor the evolution of the situation, and we will communicate with you every information that could affect the start of your studies with us. I also want to remind you that we have built a web page presenting the up-to-date information regarding the impact of the pandemic on actual and new admitted students. So to consult the page, I would like to invite you to visit the polymtl.ca/future, written in French, so no E, FURTUR/COVID-19. Note that this page hasn't been translated, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to use a Google Translator to make sure to find your answers. If not, do not hesitate to write us. You'll have our contact on the next slide. I also have to warn you about the content of today's presentation. This webinar has been prepared only in order to give you information of interest on the program you'll start at Polytechnique Montréal. So no specific information regarding COVID-19 will be given in this webinar. If you need information to know if the pandemic will affect or not the beginning of your program, I would like to invite you to visit our webpage, polymtl.ca/future/COVID-19, and note that some official communications should be sent in the coming days to tell you what will happen of the fall semester 2020. So please check your emails. So before going further, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Maud Barasa, and I'm one of the prospective student advisor for graduate studies at the school for the recruitment services. I do this work for now more than 6 years, and our mission is to give you information regarding your future study environment and give you advice for you to start your journey with us. So I'm accompanied today by one of my colleagues, which I will let introduce himself.
So hi everybody, my name is Renato Oliveira and I am a prospective student advisor for graduate studies. I've been working at Poly for 3 years now and it will be my pleasure today to give you some more information regarding your future studies.
So during this webinar, note that you will be able to ask questions in the space dedicated to the chat on the left corner of your screen. I think you have already found the specific chat location, and we will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So also, if you have any personal questions that go beyond this webinar, you can also write us by email to the previous email we have given. If you're an international student, note that we have held a specific webinar on April 30th on preparing for your stay and immigration procedures. So you can watch it at the same address where you registered for this webinar, which is polymtl.ca/future/destination polymtl. However, it was only given in French, so if you don't speak French, well, we don't have the English version of it. For today's presentation, we'll try to answer many of the questions you may have. So even if you have subscribed to one of our programs, after this presentation, you may understand better the added value of the program you have chosen to pursue, and you will see the added value to go beyond the diploma you already hold. We'll then give you a summary of our different programs, structure, and their particularities. So for this purpose, if you have not been admitted into your first choice program, you'll see the alternatives that will be offered to you during your academic process if you choose or have already chosen to accept your admission offer, because there's a way to change program during your studies. We will then focus on the main stages of your academic journey at Polytechnique, including how the courses are organized and what are the choices you'll have to make sure to meet the objective of your program. So finally, we will show you the different services offered, which you may need to use during your studies, and we will just say a brief word about the way billing will be made as well as different financing options according to the program you are admitted to and your status in Canada. So afterwards, we'll be ready to answer all of your questions. So let's start with a bit of history. So Polytechnique is located on the Mont Royal since the 1958, but the university was founded in 1873. You have on the screen some images of the first buildings that welcomed engineering students over the decades. Today, it is one of the largest engineering education and research institutions in Canada, and it ranks first in Quebec for the scope of its research activities. It is at its very first session, offered in January 1874, we were counting only 7 students, while we now count 9,000 students, which include 26% of graduate students, 28% of women, and 29% of international students, which gives the student population a beautiful diversity, which is our strength. So by graduating from Polytechnique, you will join a community of more than 50,000 graduates who work now around the world. So now, just for you to know where you're coming to study, I'd like to dissect the logo and emblem of Polytechnique to give you an overview of the values that are at the heart of our school. So you can see in front of you one of the variation of the logo where we can clearly see the 4 symbolic colors of Polytechnique, which are red, orange, green, and blue. So these colors represent various elements of our planet, with which engineers are involved. So they are declined from the bottom as magma, earth, vegetation, and sky. The different floors of our La Sonde Pavilion, which is a new building that we have in the past years, are painted with the same colors so that students keep these elements in mind on a daily basis. So and I now invite you to pay attention to the official emblem and the motto that appear on the logo. So the B represents the well-planified work of an engineer. The gear wheel represents the industrial revolution that at the end of the 19th century, it was precisely to meet the needs of that revolution that the school was founded. As it was the time of major construction sites, the beam represents civil engineering, which was the first discipline taught at Poly. Finally, the laurel crown symbolizes the excellence. So these elements have been an integral part of Polytechnique's essence since its foundation. So regarding the motto ut tensio sic vis, sorry for my bad Latin, it can be translated by the result is equal to the effort. So it is to remind you that the training that awaits you will be intellectually demanding and will probably be fraught by challenges and pitfalls. You will then have to work hard to overcome them, but your efforts will be rewarded by a promising career up to your ambitions. So you've been admitted to
So,
one of our Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Renato.
Mo.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So you have been admitted, as Maud said, to one of our graduate programs, and you are probably asking yourself if this investment is going to be worth it. I'm telling you, it is normal to have these concerns, and I'll try to give you some important information that will help you better understand the advantage of completing a program at our university. The presentation content is based on the experience our team gained while advising students and guiding them into their path over the years, as well as talking to students, graduates, and employers. Now let's talk about the advantage of doing a master, a PhD, or a DSS. Thanks to your graduate studies, you'll be able to specialize yourself in your area of interest by taking courses focused on a specific area. This will provide the necessary elements to stand out in the job market you aim like to reach. In other words, you'll be able to build a career compatible to your professional goals. You'll also be able to acquire knowledge to develop new skills. You'll be in contact with new tools, and your teachers will focus on developing advanced critical thinking. You'll be able to exchange different learning methods by sharing your own experience in academic or work environment. In addition to that, you will also develop a work and research methodology. You grow to be more independent, and you have the opportunity to expand your own professional network. On the master's or the doctoral level, The years you invest in graduate studies will help the development of management skills simply by getting involved in such programs or by further developing a research project. In the particular case of a non-thesis master's, you have the chance to attend an internship with higher responsibility compared to the ones you may have completed during your bachelor degree. This is also a way of developing your management skills, a very important asset to stand out in the job market. Obviously, if you aspire to get an academic position like becoming professor, for example, doctoral studies are necessary and they will give you the opportunity to publish scientific articles that will add value to yourself and your research. So over the years, my colleagues and I had the chance to interview many students and graduates. We asked them why they have chosen to enter graduate studies. We have even released some videos containing those statements. You have the links on the right corner of the webinar screen. You can search them as well on YouTube by writing Maîtrise Polytechnique and PhD Polytechnique, and you'll find them easily. Note that only the PhD one is bilingual. These students that we see here in the screen now work in research labs, for example, in the aerospace industry, in the biomedical field, in ergonomic and transport optimization, and other fields. Most students said they wouldn't have their current jobs if it wasn't for their master's experience. In other words, graduate studies helped them making a difference not only in their careers, but in overall society. During the last years, we have organized many roundtables so employers could give their point of view about the importance of a master's diploma for a candidate that wishes to work for their company. You'll find the link of these roundtables on the right-hand side of your screen. To summarize, employers have mentioned that they often prefer to hire a master degree candidate compared to a bachelor graduate because as the master's lasts for about 2 years, the candidate may be more mature and after complete the course. Also, let's not forget, it's not easy to be admitted and to complete a graduate program, and the employers know that. Due to many experience in a research lab or internship, the graduate candidate is more likely to have a good management skills and a good learning capacity, since he was able to reach the minimum average required to enter a graduate program. In addition to becoming a specialist on a given field, it is also understood that the graduate student is a person who has a thirst for learning and who wishes to push his knowledge further. The chances of a graduate candidate having a more analytical look developed during his master's or doctoral studies are higher. Finally, employers have said that when they receive too many resumes, they have to make a quick decision, and when deciding who is the best candidate, they might choose by checking the higher GPA if it is mentioned, by checking the implication level of the candidate on his or her studies, or by checking the amount of study years. And this last one is the particular reason why having a master can make a difference even if the job doesn't require one. In the particular case of the doctorate, a longer program of 4 to 5 years, you'll be able to go much deeper in your research on a specific subject. You may surpass your professor and your colleagues in terms of knowledge of a given subject or even become the only person who has the knowledge of your thesis. That being said, being very specialized on a subject can eventually limit the number of companies that may have an interest in hiring you. So it is very important to clearly identify the reasons that motivates you to do a doctorate in order to build a solid career plan. This will help you your future job search, whether it's for an academic career or in research and development industry. So the more specialized in a subject, the more employers may need you because you gain knowledge that a smaller group of people possess, and they will pay you a good salary for that reason. But, on the other hand, as you are really specialized, jobs may be harder to find. Finally, Be aware that there are not many academic positions in North America, but they do exist. So be open to different types of career and that may be available to you.
So our programs and pathways between, we'll talk about the programs and pathways between them. I know you have already been admitted to one of our graduate programs and that you have probably chosen the one corresponding to your interest, but I still suggest you to have a look at the characteristics of each category of programs so that you can know the benefits of each of them and the differences between the non-thesis program that include the modular programs and the research-based programs. So it is important to know that at this point of your training, after you have started your studies, you'll be able to request a change of programs in accordance with the rules associated with it. So whether you have been admitted to your second choice program, you want to extend or shorten the duration of your studies by switching to a program of greater or lesser scope, you want to change discipline, you'll be able to changing programs. So we'll get back to this a little bit later. So about getting into, without getting into the details of all the programs offered, I just wanted to show you here all of the programs offered at Poly and the different length and structure of each of them. So this graphic shows the number of credits needed to a graduate from each of them, as well as if they include an internship, a research project, or any of those. So that for this presentation, the top three hexagon in the professional program sections are for the professionals masters only. So the bottom two identified in white are also related to professional masters, but also to the DSS, which is a specialist program without the internship. So if we start with the first hexagon in blue, so for the professional masters only, you'll have to choose to do either an internship or in a company or one or more research projects in lab. So both will be paid. The internships for itself, it lasts a maximum of 15 weeks, which is full-time, but there's also the possibility of spreading it out part-time over 2 semesters. So research project will vary from 6 to 15 credits, depending on the scope of the chosen project. So the number of hours per week will be therefore variable depending on the numbers of credits of the project you will choose. So the projects are carried out on campus in the labs of or research centers of our professors and are usually part of larger projects on which work masters and doctoral students. That being said, it is possible to make several combinations in the internship or project portion of the professional masters. So if you choose to do an internship, the internship will represent 12 credits from your program, except in aerospace where they're worth 6 credits. So if you are admitted to an aerospace professional master's and you choose the internship option, you'll be able to do 2 internships of 6 credits each or combine a single internship with a research project. If you want to do a research project, you can combine 2 small projects or just do a bigger one in terms of credits. So the most important to remember about that is to always respect the maximum of 15 credits for the internship or project portion and to make sure you'll have 45 credits for the master's program at its end. So both with the internship and the project, the student will have a contact with the industry. So the internship takes place in a company while the project has a real application that can be directly or indirectly linked to the industry. Many projects are developed in partnership with companies, and inevitably it allows students to be linked to the job market by trying to find solutions to specific problems through research. So some will have to go to the companies they collaborate with, others will not, but if not, note that the professor who will supervise you has contacts in the job market and can refer you to some collaborators for post-graduation jobs. Obviously, I do not need to tell you that the professional's master's has a direct insertion to the job market. So when interns fulfill their mandate with success, many get job offer at the end of it. So however, this is not a guarantee that your study director or the career center will have an internship to offer you in your area of interest. So you may have to search it for yourself. So now for the characteristic that also concern the DSS, professional programs are mainly focused on courses chosen à la carte. So it is therefore up to you to choose the courses that interest you to accumulate the number of credits required. I invite you to go to your program website to see the list of courses offered and plan which ones you want to take because they are, as I said, à la carte. All the courses à la carte, so students can decide on what their schedule will look like. So some students will progress more slowly than others by taking part-time schedule. Note for this that part-time work is only allowed for Canadian students or permanent residents and not for international students who have for them to study full-time or and to fulfill their immigration obligations. So for those who register full-time, some will progress more quickly than others depending on the number of credits they take per semester. So the length of your program only depends on you. Also, since the summer period has no obligation to study, either for Canadian permanent residents or for international students, those who choose to take advantage of the summer period to do their internship or to take courses that would be offered at this semester will go faster, obviously, than the others who don't. So you can try to find your internship during your first summer of masters to try to finish as quickly as possible. On the other hand, your knowledge in your master's field is often limited in your first summer, and many students prefer to wait until they are more advanced in the program before doing their internship. So it will be up to you to decide if you want to go faster or at just a normal, regular pace. So now for research-based programs, as part of the research programs, you'll have to complete 15 course credits and the master's thesis or the doctoral thesis, depending on the program you're registered in. So the choice of the 5 courses to be carried out to complete the 15 credits is often dictated in whole or in part by your research director. So the reason is that the subject of your research is in most cases proposed by your research director itself, so he knows exactly what concepts you are going to need to be able to carry out your project and write your thesis either at the master's or at the PhD. Several research projects are also funded by companies or by the government of Quebec or Canada. So when a professor receives funding for a given project, it is with this money that he can buy equipment for his lab as well as pay the students doing research for him. So in the case of a research-based master's, the funding offered is usually $18,000 per year, while for the PhD it is actually $22,000 per year. So just to make sure that this is well understood, to be able to get this funding, you must have a discussion with your director if you have not already done so. At the research-based masters, even if it's not mandatory, you will also have the possibility to publish a first article in a scientific journal. Um, as well, for the PhD, it is part of the expectations, and consequently, you'll have to publish. Your publications will therefore become your identity, which will reflect your research and your contribution to science. For students admitted to a master's degree who wish to pursue a PhD, you will already have, in this case, an interesting scientific resume. For those who will want to get into the job market after their master's, we'll have a proof of what they will have accomplished and will be able to talk about it in an interview. In addition, who says publication often says conference presentation. So it means that you will probably have the opportunity to travel with your research project when the situation allows, and thus enlarge your network of contacts in your field of engineering. Just to make sure, I've seen a question about that. For the job market opportunities before the crisis, it was very favorable in Canada, so it was not an issue to find a job if you had the authorization to work on the territory of Canada. So who knows what happens after COVID, but I guess it will take back as normal as it was before the crisis, but nobody knows at this time. Your research will also give you the opportunity to be well prepared for the job market. You will have gain experience in project management in addition to having developed an advanced work methodology and knowledge in a specific field. You'll also have developed detailed knowledge on a given subject to help you distinguish from other graduates looking for a job. Also, since many projects are funded by the industry, there is a direct relationship between research and the industry. However, whether the project is funded by the industry or not, there is always a link with the real world, which allows integration into the job market since you will be working to find real solution with the project you will be assigned to. So after starting your studies at Polytechnique, if you wish, you'll be able to change program if, for example, you were not admitted into your first choice program, or if you change your mind about the field or the type of program you want to pursue. The time to ask for that changing program will, however, depend on the average score you had when you first applied. So if at the time of your first admission request, you already had the average of the program you wish to change for, you'll be able to make your request for changing program as of your first semester of studies. This means that you will not have to wait to get a first report card or a GPA before applying for that changing program. For example, if you have been admitted to a DSS, but your average was already good enough for an admission to a master's degree, which is more than 2.75 out of 4, or its equivalent in your country, you'll be able to request for a changing program to the master's at any time in your DSS. You'll only have to send the required documents after making sure you meet the deadlines and other admission criteria, such as finding a professor to supervise you if you want to change to a research program. However, if you didn't have the required average of the program you want to change for when you submitted your application request, you'll have to take at least 9 course credits and make sure to get the pass rate average of the program you want to be admitted to be eligible to a program change. This would apply if, for example, you had an average lower than 2.75 out of 4 when trying to be admitted to the master's. As we will need to have a proof of your GPA in a minimum of 9 course credits to check if this one is above the pass rate average, you won't be able to ask for a changing program before having finished your first semester. So this means you won't be able to ask for a changing program before having started your second semester or until you have the proof that you have reached the pass rate average. So for your information, the pass rate average for the masters, it is 3 out of 4, not 2.75, but really 3 out of 4. So for both cases, once admitted in your new program, you'll be able to request for course credit exemption for the courses you'll have done when registered in your previous program if your new director agrees to it. So without going deeply into details, if you're interested in a changing program and you have questions, I would invite you to check on the rules that apply and the documents to fill on the website that I have put in references on the right-hand side of your screen, or to write us by email. For example, you may want to change program. I'll give you some example. You have been admitted to the DSS or to the professional masters, and suddenly there's a professor who would like for you to pursue in a research-based master with him. So you could ask for changing program. Another example, if you have been refused to your first program choice because you couldn't, so you can then ask for changing program if you get the pass rate average, as explained earlier. Another example, if you have been refused to your first program choice because you couldn't find a research supervisor, but now you have found one. Also, you don't want to finish your PhD and you would like to graduate from a master's. Or you have started a research-based master's and you would like to deepen your research into a project of PhD. So these are all examples that you could request for a changing program if you fulfill all the admission criteria.
So another frequently asked question, if it is possible to get equivalencies or exemptions for courses done in another program. The answer is it depends. For students who finish their undergrad at Poly, yes, it is possible to get if you have done courses of the 6000 or 8000 series, and if you got a B and above mark on them. You could then request credit equivalents for these courses up to half of the course's credits of your graduate program. For students coming from another school, Local or international, you have to know that the basic rule is that a course cannot contribute to get two different degrees. So your courses from your undergrad cannot help you to get course credits equivalents for a DSS or a master's. However, if you have only completed a course but you not have the full study program containing that course, so if you didn't finish your program but you did a course, you could ask for equivalences. The exemption, which is different from the equivalence, it is when we recognize the training and the experience of a candidate to exempt him from a course. It mostly happens at the PhD level when a student has already completed the required courses at the master's level and do not need to do it again for the PhD thesis. So, if you are admitted in a PhD and you have completed a master's degree, you could get exemptions for all of your courses credits or part of them. However, if you are an international student other than French or Francophone Belgian, and it's really important, be careful with this rule. As you will benefit from an exemption of differential tuition fees to pay as a Quebec student, you will have to make sure to achieve a minimum of 9 course credits and get a minimum average of 3 out of 4 to keep that tuition fee exemption. So you should make sure not to get more than 6 course credits exemptions, otherwise you lose the tuition fee exemption after your third semester, which costs about $5,000 per semester. All the detail on this scholarship exemption are available on the Study Costs and Financial Aid section of the website polymtl.ca/future/es, future without an E. Another element that raises many questions is the study plan. This plan is a document that every student has to fill out after his or her admission in order to preset all the activities they intend to take during their program. Once accepted by your study or research director, this plan will serve as a pre-approved roadmap of your path. This is allow you to plan and announce your personalized study path and make sure your study path is in line with the program you are registered in. By filling this study plan, you'll be able to register to your courses every semester by yourself. So with this plan, you make sure that the courses you do contribute to your graduate. Note that your study plan has to be sent to your department before your first inscription or at least before the last day allowed for the course's modification. If, for example, you decide to change program from DSS to Masters, from Masters to PhD, and other possibilities, you then have to make a new study plan according to your new program and request some equivalence for the courses already done that can eventually contribute to your new program. Let's talk about a little bit about tuition fees and financing. When receiving your admission letter, you see what the tuition fees for your first semester or for your first year of study are going to be. The amount written on this letter was adjusted according to two aspects. Your status in Canada, so if you are a permanent resident, Canadian, international studies, and the type of program to which you have been admitted. For example, for the research-based master's and the PhD, the tuition fees will be the same every semester, no matter what the workload is. You'll also be registered to 3 semesters per year, which are fall, winter, and summer terms. If you want to take vacations, you would then have to discuss with your research director to know when you can do this. For the professional programs, such as DSS or non-thesis based and non-thesis master, the tuition fees will be charged according to the number of credits you take each semester. You receive the bill through your student file about 1 month after the start of each semester of inscription. So far, you probably have a good idea of how you manage to pay the tuition fees of the program you have been admitted to. However, if it's not the case, I would invite you to visit our web page, more specifically the tab called Study Costs and Financial Aid, given on the last point form. On this one, you find useful resources regarding financial aid given by the Government of Quebec if you are a Quebec resident, the directory of all the scholarship offered at Polytechnique, the founding possibilities, and the possibilities of founding provided by your supervisor or for the research when we talk about research programs. Don't forget to check with your director if he or her knows scholarships specific to his field that you could apply to, and check also if he or her has work to offer you, for example, as a teaching assistant or correct examines and other jobs that we have in campus. You can also count on a student job, and if you are an international student, don't forget that your study permit will allow you to work up to 20 hours per week outside campus during the study semesters and full-time when you are on vacation. It is important to know that as a Polytechnic student, you have access to several services to support your academic journey. For example, the Student Service Team, called SCP, which offers academic assistance service, psychological assistance, financial assistance, advice on questions related to immigration, and many other services. In addition to the service of the student service team, you have access to entrepreneurship support service, to cutting-edge laboratories such as Polyfab Normandbras, where, for example, you can use 3D printers. You have access also to the internship service and career management center, a modern and comprehensive library, a sports complex, and all the activities organized by the university's student associations. Without going into details of all the service offered at Polytechnique, what you have to remember is that in our university, you will get the support you need to achieve your study project, and you will get access to many resources to facilitate your integration into school and to the job market.
So before ending this presentation, I cannot go without giving you some useful tips for the future. So first of all, if it's not done yet, I would invite you to accept your admission offer in your online student file. To get access to this one, you have to go to admission.polymtl.ca. Also, if some documents are still missing to complete your application, for example, diplomas or final transcripts, make sure to send them to the registrar office. I would like also to remind you that we have created a webpage to inform you of different measures taken by Polytechnique to answer your questions regarding COVID-19. So do not hesitate to go and check that website frequently as the situation evolves to check on the official decisions taken by the school who may have an influence on your study project. So finally, in the coming days, you should receive a first newsletter from what we call GoPoly to guide you step by step on the coming actions to take. So from that moment, GoPoly will be your first source of information for activities, resources, and services offered for the back to school. For your information, the letters G and O in the sign of Go mean guide and orient. So that is the mission of GoPoly, to guide you and orient you. So watch your emails and go to polymtl.ca/rentrée/en to know everything about the coming steps to undertake. Also, if some circumstances do not allow you to start your program with us this coming fall, and so you wish to postpone your admission offer, you can do so if your admission letter allow. So please check the validity of your admission letter. But for most of you, if you have been admitted for the fall 2020, your admission offer will remain valid for 2 more semesters after fall 2020, which means that it is valid for full year. You'll find more information regarding that on the website rentrée/en. Also last week, some information regarding the online classes for fall 2020 had been released. We have a communique released on the main webpage of Polytechnique Montréal, but you should receive all the information regarding what will affect your own studies into your first Go Poly newsletter by next week. So please check your emails. If you still have questions after this webinar, we would like you to contact us by email. So for more efficiency, I advise you to send your questions to the appropriate resources. For general information on the programs and the study path, please give priority to advisor to future students, which is me and Renato. You can write at future@polyntl.ca. So for questions related to preparing for your stay and immigration procedures, please contact the international student advisors of the student services. For everything concerning the steps to be completed before the classes begins or the back to school activities, please address yourself to the advisors Go Poly. And finally, if you want to exchange with current students so that they can tell you about their own experience, our student ambassadors will answer you with great pleasures. So let me assure you that the entire Polytechnique Montreal team is looking forward to welcoming you physically or online for the fall 2020. But until then, I wish you success in the coming steps to undertake. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. And now I'll be able to start answering your questions. So Isabelle was deeply monitoring all of your questions, and she'll be able to address me all of your preoccupations.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me properly
Yeah, we can hear you, Isa.
Okay, perfect. So first question that we have, first of all, thank you very much for this amazing presentation. One of the questions that we had is concerning the English classes. So they want to know if the PhD lectures are bilingual and which portion of the PhD courses are taught in English.
Okay, thank you for that question. There is many aspects to the answers of that question. So first of all, some classes at Polytechnique will be given in English. So I would like you to check on the list of courses offered. As soon as there is a E at the end of, for example, civil engineering, CIV 8205, with a E after that, it means that the course will be officially given in English. If there is no E, it will be on the beginning of the classes. The professor will check who's in the class and could decide if they will give you the class in French or in English. But that gives you a little uncertainty about if you'll be able to attend the class in English or not. If you're able to work by a lot by yourself, for example, if the class is given in French, but the lectures are or the books are in English, then you could work a lot on yourself and ask the professor if you can answer your exams and write your documents and weekly work in English. Most of the time, the professors agree to that. So this is for the part of classes given at Polytechnique. But also for the research-based masters and the PhD, there is the possibility for you to attend classes at some English universities located in Montreal. So we have McGill and Concordia. It's an internal process at Polytechnique that you could register for classes given at these two universities. So for now, with the COVID-19, knowing that you'll mostly be able to attend your classes online, we have to check with these two universities if they will also offer their classes online. But don't worry with that. You'll be able to register to physically or probably online also for these courses to make sure that you can attend your 15 course credits in English.
Thank you for that answer. My next question was concerning the courses in other universities, but you already answered this. So I'm going to go on to the next one. The next one is concerning the ranking of Polytechnique Montréal. So they would like to know if you could inform them why its ranking is not shown in QS World University rankings. They say many engineering universities. Okay.
I understand the question. So Polytechnique Montreal is affiliated with the University of Montreal. So we are located on the same campus. Outside of this affiliation, we are a university that is completely independent of University of Montreal. It means that we have our own finances, services, own library, own labs. So we don't share much with UDM except the ranking type. So if you try to look for Polytechnique in the ranking QS or Shanghai or whatever ranking you look to, you'll have to check for UDM because we are part of UDM for the rankings. But most of the ranking that UDM succeed to get is mostly because of their medicine school, but also because Polytechnique is doing great and helps UDM to be higher in the ranking. So don't worry with the ranking of Polytechnique. We do great in research if that is your concern. And you could also look at specifically the resume of your professor to check what is the strength in research that the professor who will be working with you has with his resume and publications. Also, if I may add, just add a small information, when you graduate from Polytechnique, so the diploma you'll be awarded will be given by University of Montreal on behalf of Polytechnique Montreal. So you'll have the two logos that will appear on your diploma if that is a concern that you have.
Thank you very much. Next question, how many TA positions are usually available each term?
That's a good question. I don't have a specific answer to that one. So teaching assistant is given especially by the professor. So you have to knock on doors to different professors and see if they have teaching assistant position. What you have to be aware of is that as most of the classes of Polytechnique, or the big majority of them, are given in French. If you don't speak French, that will be difficult to be a teaching assistant because you won't be able to teach in French. So you'll have to look for other job positions as correcting exams if exams are written in English, or trying to do research for the professor in some lab that may be different of the work that you'll do during your master thesis or PhD thesis. But you have to be concerned about the language of teaching at Polytechnique in order to find for a job position.
Thank you. Next question, we touched base on this subject a little bit, but can you please clarify how can they defer their admission to the winter session if they're not able to attend the fall session?
Okay, so first of all, we have had some announcement last week. There is news published on the main page of Polytechnique that says that most of the classes will be given online in fall semester. So if you don't want to attend online the classes, as it will be released, sent the information by email shortly to you, you can defer your admission. It is possible to go to your dossier online, so your application file, and then you'll be able just to decide not to register. So there's no actions to be taken for the graduate studies if you want to defer. It's just you don't have to subscribe or to make an inscription for the fall term. Obviously, if you want to study online in fall 2020, then you just have to click on the button inscription, and then you'll have to make your study plan as Renato presented and select the courses you want to take. But if your admission offer is valid for 3 terms, which is all of the letters are valid for 3 terms, so if it's valid after the fall 2020, which is winter 2021, you just don't have to register for fall 2020 and then register for winter 2021. That's all you have to do if you want to postpone your start at Polytechnique.
Perfect, thank you. Since there's going to be the option of doing the classes online, does that mean that they don't need to get a study permit for the fall session if they choose to go do their study?
That's also a good question. I don't want to give you bad information regarding that, but I think you'll be able to start your classes online if you don't have your CAQ and your study permit online for the start of the classes. But just to make sure, please wait for the Go Poly news. They'll give you all the information regarding that, just to make sure you don't have to postpone your admission and just start your classes online normally without all the permits. So wait for the GoPoly news or address your question to our advisors for immigration procedures, which you can find here, SEP/international at polymtl.ca.
Thank you very much. What happens in the case of a student that his last possible semester to come here was summer 2020, and because of the pandemic going on with COVID-19, it was impossible for this student to come here. Does he need to reapply for a new program, or how does it work?
There's a way of getting a new admission letter. I would invite you to write us an email to future@polymtl.ca, and we will forward your concern to the registrar office so they can answer you properly, and if it's possible to send you a new admission letter for the coming term. So please write us to future, FUTUR @polymtl.ca.
Thank you so much. Another question is from Ali, asking if the professors are in their office or not. Do they often reply to their emails? How do they go about the funding situation? And are they in a tight situation?
Okay. The situation may be different from a professor to another. So for now, the school is open for research. So some professors have been allowed to go back to school. But anyway, whether they are at the school or they are at home, they're checking their emails, they get salary, they are working as we are now ourselves too. So they should be answering you if you especially if you have been admitted with a research director and you need to contact him, you should write him to know what are the concerns about starting your research with him, the fact of postponing your start. So because financial situation and access to labs really depends or rely on the professors who will be supervising you. If your main concerns is money, really it's the professor who can answer you. Some have money, some don't. Most of the professor who have admitted students into the research group should have been discussed this situation with you before, but if they don't, please address the question to them and they'll be they'll be able to answer you.
Thank you. Next question concerning, again, the online semester during the fall, concerning the tuition fees. So if they choose to do their session online, are they going to have to pay tuition fees? If so, when and how is that going to work?
So it will be the same as if there was no COVID-19 and the classes were happening at Poly physically. If the classes are going to be online, the tuition fees will apply the same way, the same amount, and the bill will be sent to students at the same period of time, which is about 1 month after the classes starts. So there is no reduction of tuition fees because you'll be home and not at Polytechnique.
Thank you. Next question is, someone wants to know a bit more about the reputation of Polytechnique outside of Canada for working as an academic researcher. How many of your graduate students for in other universities, especially abroad in Canada?
That's a good question, tricky one. Unfortunately, we don't have data about that. Once students graduate from Poly, we cannot keep track unless they give us information. So I don't have any numbers to answer that question. But Polytechnique is really well known on the international scale. You can check, you can ask. It also depends on which professor you'll be working, and what is the resume of your professor, and what are the connections that your professor has around the world. So obviously, if you want to have an academic position in another countries, it will depend on that. But Polytechnique, it's not Harvard, but also it's not an unknown university that nobody has heard about. So it really ranks well in Canada, and obviously Canada is doing good research around the world. So you can be pretty much sure that it will be well considered, and you can also rely to the international rankings looking at UDM positions. So depending on over the years, we mostly rank between 100 and 150 in the world, so which is quite good, I should say. So for the QS ranking, we rank between 101 and 150, and for the QS recently we were 115, but we rank between 86 and 132, something like that. So which is pretty good. So you can rely on that, but obviously, as I mentioned before, you cannot check for Polytechnique into the ranking. We don't appear. We are under the umbrella of University of Montreal. So that's what you have to look for the international rankings.
Thank you. Next question is about the study plan. How does it work? How becoming fall term online affects this study plan, especially if they can't sit down with their supervisors and talk in person?
Well, it is the same way as we are now able to work together and give you this presentation at this time. So Isabel and Renato and myself, we're not in the same room, but we still collaborate with each other, and we are organizing this webinar. So there's no problem for you to sit down with your research supervisor, open Skype or WebEx or GoToMeeting or whatever platform you want to use to speak with your research director and sit and check what are the classes your supervisor would like you to register for to be able to work on your project. Also, even if you cannot make a Skype appointment because whatever reason, this is not very complicated, and you can do it by sending emails and do a back and forth discussion with your supervisor. So just make sure you download the study plan and you fill it according to what you think that would be good for you, and then your director could correct and say, I would prefer changing this course for that other course that I judge more necessary for you to be able to complete the research project with myself.
Thank you. I have two more questions. Next one is about the Polytechnique email address and access to the libraries for research activities. When will these accounts be active, and how can they access?
If my memory is good, you can access to your email after registering into your dossier application. So you'll probably have all these information into your first newsletter, Go Poly. But otherwise, if you search on the website, you can check for dossier en ligne, and you can generate a password and a user code, and then you'll be able to get access to your poly email, so which is basically your first name dot your last name at polymtl.ca. But please do browse on our website, and you should find the answer. If not, in the first newsletter, Go Poly, you should get all the information, or it will be throughout this summer. In any case, since you have not registered yet for the fall semester because the platform is not open yet for selecting your courses, any or every communication that will be sent to you will be sent to your email that you have provided for your admission. So if it's a Gmail, Hotmail, whatever, until the inscription is not done, we will communicate with you with your Gmail or Hotmail, whatever it is.
Thank you. Next question is concerning the funding received by professors. First of all, if the fall 2020 semester is held online and they choose to do it online, since they're still paying their tuition fees, are they still receiving the same funding from their professors, or is that going to be different since it's online and not in person?
Yeah, this is a question that could be answered by your research supervisor. Some professors only start to pay their student once they start their research. So if there is a first semester that is only for taking classes, no financial funding is provided, and sometimes they will just start when the research really starts. Some other professor can decide to start paying their students from their first semester, no matter they do research or not. So really that question could be answered by your research director. So please address your question to your supervisor.
Thank you. Next question. I asked for some, I did not get them yet. But the question is, again, concerning the funding. They want to know if the professor should send the funding letter or if the department should do it.
Usually it's they work both together, so it's the department who's sending it, but it's the professor who has to sign it. So whether you're in touch more easily with the professor or the department, you can address your question to get that specific letter in order to send that letter for immigration purposes to just tell what are your financial founding in order to pay for your tuition fees and your living expenses in Montreal. So that is really important to have a proof of the financial support that the professor will provide you if he agrees to give you a financial support for you to be able to give a proof of your financial income when you are in Canada to get your study permit and CAQ.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I think that's all the questions, unless anybody has any other questions that they would like to ask now before this presentation ends.
So I'll give you my word to Renato for the conclusion then, if there's no more questions.
Perfect. So we are ending our question period, and in my name and on behalf of Maud and Isabelle, we thank you very much for connecting with us this afternoon or tonight, depending in the region you may be. We hope to have answered all of your questions, and as mentioned in the presentation, if some concerns remain, do not hesitate to write us at future@polymtl.ca, future without an E. Also, today's presentation has been recorded and will be made available by next Monday at polymtl.ca/future/destination polymtl. So the same page you register for this webinar. So do not hesitate to refer to it. You can also download the documents that we made available to you on the right corner of your screen. Once again, thank you very much and have a good day or a good night. Goodbye.